Hi everyone, welcome to another monthly class at 2Ps. This is a year in cards, and the cards for this month are going to be some baby cards. And I didn't view this class as just a challenge for myself to make some baby cards, but also a challenge to use a baby scrapbooking kit. Oftentimes we get these kits or receive these kits and think it's only for scrapbooking baby photos and things like that. But you could also use it to make baby cards. So I thought I'd view that as a challenge for myself to make some baby cards. The kit I'm using is from Crate Paper, and you can find a link to buy it over at 2Ps with this video. It'll be accompanying this video, or you can go to the shopping section and look under Crate Paper. Just cut some scallop edge on the bottom of this pattern paper and then also the corners. And I'm going to use a white gel pen and just draw some stitching lines around the edge of the card. And then I'll adhere it down to the card with some foam adhesive. What I'm wrapping around the card is just some embroidery floss or thread. It's the thread that's used for cross stitching and counter cross stitch, so you can find it at your local craft store. This brand is DMC, I think that's the brand, and this is just their white color. I'm just wrapping it around. I'm going to be tying it in a quick bow. Okay, well, these are the die cuts that come in that Crate Paper baby kit. We're going to be using die cuts for most of these cards, or all of them actually. And for the first one, I'm going to be using the BABY for baby. And the one thing you want to note when you use die cuts like this that are punched out from a sheet is that sometimes it'll leave little nubbies behind. So I like to take some scissors and kind of clean it up, or even the files from the Basic Grade Precision Filing Kit, and just sand off the little edges and the little nooks that are left behind. Okay, I've arranged all the letters out on the card. I'm just deciding how I want to adhere them down. I'm only going to have one letter be directly adhered to the paper. The rest are going to be popped up with some foam adhesive. So I've put down the B. The next one I'll be putting down is the A, and then the other B, and then the Y. I did it in this order because I wanted certain letters to overlap other letters. So I wanted this B to overlap since it's the first letter in the word. And I also wanted the Y to overlap the B there at the end. And there we go. That pretty much finishes up our first card. And we'll be heading straight into the next card. And I'm using these Hero Arts craft note cards for these first two cards. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking this little die cut edge piece, or actually before we even get to that, we're going to do some punching of a scallop edge here. That's the Fisker Scallop Sentiment punch. And here's another piece of pattern paper. I've just rounded the corners on, and I'll be adhering it straight to the card. And that piece of orange pattern paper that I punched with the scallop punch, or the threading water punch, I'm sorry, it's not the Scallop Sentiment punch, the threading water punch. I actually cut it down so it was a little bit skinnier. I'm going to be adhering that to the card next. And I'm going to be using my grid mat here in order to get the edge on there just right. Have that down. And then I'll be trimming off the edge. And then I have a little strip of pattern paper I'm going to put over top of the seam where those two pieces of pattern paper met. And it's so skinny and little, I'm actually going to apply the glue to the front of the card. And I want to make sure that my strip of green pattern paper covers that seam, so I'm putting the glue directly on that seam. And once again using the gridded mat to help me align this just right. Okay, and we'll trim off the edge, the extra. And then we'll punch the corners. I'm going to be using these 3 little mushrooms on this card, as well as some other pieces from the die cuts in this kit. I'm actually going to be using the little owl that's kind of kitty corner from the mushrooms. And then the little conversation bubble that's right above it that says, "Who's the little cutie?" Just arranging them on the card so I know where I'm going to be adhering them. I'll have that little guy talking at him. Okay, and it's time to start adhering it down. I'm using some foam adhesive as well for this. There'll be one mushroom that is adhered down straight to the card, but that's the very last mushroom I put on, and I believe it's the orange one. Okay, and now we'll adhere the little owl to the front of the card. Once again, I'm going to use some foam adhesive. Oh, that little card wants in. It wants to be in the frame. I actually had a fan on while I was working on this because it was so hot in my office. I had to have a fan on. So if you see any cards wanting to fly away, that would be why. So there's the second card, and we're on to the third card. This is a square card, and I made it 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And the reason I made it that particular size is because I have some 5x5 envelopes that I'm going to be using for this card. This is another die cut edge from that same die cut set from crepe paper, and I'm just figuring out where I can cut the bottom of the card so I can have that rickrack shape be hanging off the edge. So I cut off the end of the card a little bit, and now I'm adhering some pattern paper to the very bottom of it. And then I'm gluing down that rickrack shape, and I'm just adhering or putting glue on the top half of that little strip. And that's because I don't want glue on the bottom because it's going to overhang the edge, and that is going to become the edge of the card. So don't forget to put a little bit down the center. And I'm just doing it over scratch paper just in case I got a little bit of glue oozing out. That looks pretty good. Okay, now we're moving on to the die cuts. I've got this die cut frame here. It's got a little scallop edge on it. So I'll take it out of the die cut sheet, and then I'll have to take out the center as well. There's actually a couple different frames inside this one, so you really get your money's worth. Adhere that down with some foam adhesive. And then I have 2 other little shapes that I punched out from the die cuts. I have this little bird here. I'm just going to take off the little notches that are left behind after taking it out of the die cut sheet, and then adhering down with some foam adhesive once again. Here I'm writing in "It's a" right above the word boy. Normally for a scrapbook you would just put boy, you know, for your baby boy that was born, but since this is a card that I'll be giving to someone who's had a baby boy, I thought it would just be fun to put "It's a boy" on the front. I added some ribbon. I added it at the last minute, kind of threaded through, and thankfully I didn't have any adhesive that was in the way. So I just threaded through that frame into a little knot, and that finishes up the third card. If you have any questions about these cards, please join us over on the message boards at 2peasinabucket.com, and make sure you check out the class page to see all the projects and instructions. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next month for another edition of A Year in Cards.